Okay, there you have it. Welcome back. This is News and Views right here on Salam Media. The clip we viewed a minute ago was the Haron family, the family of the late Imam Haron's family, at the second day of the reopening of the inquest into the death of Imam Haron. Online, we have Jessie Waldman. She's a PhD student at UCT, focusing on inquests. Jessie previously worked as a solicitor in England and Wales, specializing in human rights, including inquests into deaths in custody. A very good morning to you, Jessie. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Julie. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
I'm blown away by the type of work you're involved in, and I'm kind of wondering, how come you've entered this space? What has brought you to do this type of work?
So I first became interested in inquests when I qualified as a solicitor, and I found myself representing the family of a man who had taken his own life whilst in prison. And that was where I realized the importance of the inquest process for answering the family's questions and ensuring public accountability for what happens behind closed doors when somebody dies in custody.
Are you able to, through your work, be able to, your part in this process, be able to give families the closure that they so sorely need and try and move on with their lives? Because it must be really painful. And having said that, undoubtedly it touches you in a very big way as well. It must be so very emotionally draining.
For sure, it's hopefully an opportunity for families to have their questions answered and obtain the closure that they need of their unanswered questions regarding their loved one. I wasn't officially part of the legal team in the Haron inquest, but I know that the lawyers there have been working incredibly hard to try and answer the family's questions and ensure the right questions are asked in court, so that after this process finishes, finally 50 years after Haron's death, that the family can get some type of closure.
Okay, sadly, the reason why obviously we're talking with Jessie Waldman is we are following the reopening of the inquest into the death of Imam Haron in the Western Cape. We are all aware of the fact that he died, or he was killed at the age of 45. He was detained by the security branch of the South African police, and that was obviously over 53 years ago. The family has worked long and hard to reopen the inquest because they want answers. They want closure. They want history to get the facts right as far as the death of Imam Haron as an activist, a political activist, is concerned. So the first 2 days, Jessie, how has that unfolded? We saw the clip of the family members entering the court, and even that, in that brief moment, I was pretty emotional. I can't even begin to understand, or I can't even begin to, wonder at the family's deep sense of grief and trauma walking into the courtroom on Monday morning.
Absolutely. It's been probably an incredibly draining couple of days for the family. Yesterday, it was an especially significant day because there was an in loco visit of the 2 police stations where Haron was detained whilst he was in custody. So we first went to the Central Cape Town Police Station, which used to be known as Caledon Square, and we visited the cell where he was kept there. And we also got the opportunity to see the set of stairs which the security branch officers say that he fell down. So in the first inquest, the official cause of death was the narrowing of the arteries of his heart. But the inquest magistrate found that the fall down the stairs had significantly contributed to the death. The family has questions whether that was really the case. And so in the morning, we got the opportunity to have a look at that staircase. And then in the afternoon, back at the court, the family then heard from the full expert, an aeronautical engineer called Dr. Moodley, who examined the injuries noted on Harun's body in the post-mortem report and looked at whether it was probable that those injuries were in fact caused by a fall down the stairs. And what was quite interesting was that Dr. Moodley found that it was actually very unlikely that the types of injuries that Harun had suffered could have been caused by a fall as described by the security branch officers.
What did he believe was the reason for those injuries and bruises all over Imam Harun's body? Did he indicate that at all?
That's a very interesting question. It's something that was outside of the remit of that particular expert to answer, but it's something that will be considered in the coming days of the inquest. So we'll be hearing from Stephanie Kemp, another person who was detained during the apartheid regime, who alleges that she was tortured by security branch officers. And we'll be hearing other evidence from other people who can attest to the fact that security branch officers routinely used torture during interrogation. The suggestion being that Harun was also subjected to continuous and systematic assaults whilst he was detained in custody, and that may have been the contributing factor to his death.
I'm kind of wondering, as all of these facts were put to the court, did you kind of notice how the family members were reacting to the very graphic details of how the late Imam Haron sustained these horrific injuries, which eventually led to his death?
Yes, I've been sitting in the public gallery close by to the family. Sadly, Imam Haron's wife died back in 2019, but his 3 children have had the opportunity to attend this reopened inquest. They've been conducting themselves with incredible dignity and really admirable strength, but undoubtedly, especially visiting the cell where he was detained, and in fact the cell where he was found deceased at Maitland Police Station, I'm sure that must have been an incredibly tough day for them all and a very emotional time.
I wanted to read something that Advocate Varney has suggested. He is the advocate representing the family regarding the reopening of the inquest into the death of Imam Haron. He says that the 1970 inquest report into the Imam's death, presided over by Magistrate G.S.B. Kun, made for very pitiful reading. Says to mask the real cause of those injuries back in 1969 and 1970, the Haron family were forced to sit powerlessly as an intricate web of lies unfolded to protect the security police responsible for Haron's death.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, during the apartheid regime, magistrates were quite notorious for colluding with security branch officials when it came to investigating their behaviour. So what we see in this case is that the magistrate failed to ask the relevant questions regarding how Haron sustained his injuries. He didn't encourage any questioning regarding the manner in which Haron was interrogated. And in fact, when the family's advocate at that first inquest tried to ask those types of questions, they were dissuaded from that type of line of questioning. So that magistrate, having heard the evidence, wrote a very short and undetailed conclusion regarding how Haron had come about his death, which didn't really go into the relevant facts regarding whether or not he might have been subject to torture.
That was the sad situation back in the dark days of apartheid. Jessie, we'd like to take an ad break and continue the discussion with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thank you.
Joining hands, Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Thousands of Syrian Palestinian refugees and Lebanese children do not have access to education. Amman means safety and is a school that provides formal education from kindergarten to grade 9. Africa Muslims Agency aims to provide 650 children with education that will change the trajectory of their lives and their families' lives. Fulfill your intention by fulfilling their dreams. Donate 16,000 Rand per child or any amount. Go to africamuslimsagency.co.za or call us on 011 834 8685. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
The Yemen war is 7 years old, but the violence keeps escalating with severe impacts on the food security of millions of families. People in Yemen are desperate and need our support to survive. Let's make a difference in Yemen today. Donate now at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
We are talking with Jessie Waldman. She's a PhD student at UCT, focusing on inquests. Jessie previously worked as a solicitor in England and Wales, specializing in human rights, including inquests into deaths in custody, and that's the reason why we have on the show today, and that's the reason why also she's involved in the reopening of the inquest into the killing of the late Imam Haron. At the age of 45, he was detained by security branch of the South African police. That was, of course, more than 53 years ago. And he was brutally tortured and killed in detention. His family didn't attend or bring up the issue at the TRC because his late wife didn't believe that it would be a fair hearing at all. They have now, that many years later, decided to reopen the inquest into Imam Haron's death. They need answers. They need closure. And when I spoke to their daughter Fatima on Monday, she also indicated that they wanted to give the right narrative, the correct narrative, as far as history and apartheid atrocities are concerned. So, Jessie, back to you. And we do know that yesterday, as you have told us, inspections in loco was conducted at the two police stations where Imam Abdullah Haron spent his final days. He was detained, and initially he was at the Cape Town police station. Back then it was called the Caledon Square police station. But his body was later discovered at a cell at the Maitland police station. How do how do you tie up the differences in location, and are those questions being asked? He was detained at the one police station. The body was found under very suspicious circumstances at another police station.
That's right. So, to my understanding, it was known that he was moved from the Culloden Square police station to the Maitland police station prior to his death. But something that wasn't explored in the first inquest until very late in the day was the fact that during his stay at the Culloden Square police station, he was in fact removed from there for 3 days to an undisclosed location and then brought back there. And those records were not disclosed in the first inquest. That was something that the first inquest magistrate, Magistrate Kuhn, should have been asking questions about to find out what had happened to him in those 3 days. And that was something that the family raised in the first inquest. But it should have been disclosed by the state, and it should have been explored in much more detail.
Do you think it's going to come out in the current inquest? Are those questions going to be asked so that obviously the truth is in fact finally revealed?
Absolutely, that will certainly be something that's explored in the coming days. One of the challenges that we face with this case is that we're now trying to get justice over 50 years after these events took place. Much of the evidence gets eroded by time. So the key suspects in the case, the 2 security branch officers who interrogated Haron, have both now passed away. And this is why they say in cases like this, it's justice delayed is justice denied, because as brilliant as it is that this case is now finally happening, there's been many missed opportunities by the delay in this inquest being reopened.
Do we know if Magistrate Kuhn is still alive? Because it would be interesting to hear his response to the fact that this inquest has been reopened.
Absolutely. As far as I'm aware, he's no longer alive.
Okay, so to move on then, what do we expect in court today and possibly tomorrow, and perhaps the rest of the week? Undoubtedly, my colleague Inayat Wadi will pick up on the proceedings as well. But what's going to be unfolding in court today?
Absolutely. So we've got more expert evidence in the coming days. We'll be hearing also from the family members of Haron. And as I said, we'll also be hearing from other people who were detained during the apartheid regime, such as Stephanie Kemp. So the idea with the evidence that's coming now is to fill in the picture and to understand more about the events that happened in the days leading to Haron's death.
Undoubtedly, lots of graphic details will be revealed during the next few days. How long is the case, the inquest, expected to be ongoing for?
It's listed to last until the end of next week.
What else do you believe is going to unfold in the coming days? Undoubtedly, we will be still touching sides as the case unfolds. This we will be doing on a regular basis, because this is of huge importance, not only to this case, but obviously issues during, crimes of apartheid.
Absolutely. I think it's well worth staying tuned in the coming days as we hear the evidence of the different witnesses. And then finally, at the conclusion of the inquest, once we hear the findings of this particular judge, Judge Daniel Thulare, who's a High Court judge in Cape Town. So when he gives his findings, it will be very interesting to hear his take on the case and what his conclusions are in respect of Haron's death.
I know I should be leaving this question for at the end of the inquest, but I can't resist it. Whatever the outcomes, and of course, I think we kind of almost, the entire country, including the family, do know that the inquest is going to reveal with details, obviously intricate and graphic details of how Imam Haron was killed. But what happens after the final verdict has been pronounced by the sitting judge? I'm kind of wondering, how does the team that was sitting on the legal team sitting in on this inquest move on? What do you do thereafter, and the family themselves?
It's a very good question. Because in other similar inquests that have taken place, like the reopened inquest into the death of Ahmed Timol, the security branch officer in that case was still alive. And so after the conclusion of the inquest, the case was passed back to the NPA, who then had to make a decision regarding whether to prosecute the security branch officer. And ultimately, they decided that yes, the security branch officer should be prosecuted, and now a criminal prosecution is underway. In this particular case, the security branch officers had already passed on, and so that's not a possible outcome of this inquest. So all we can really hope for is that this particular court can find out more about Haron's death, set the public record straight, and give the family some closure that they so desperately need.
And obviously, as the historical narrative is concerned, that is the good news, that history will tell the true story of not only the late Imam Haron, but of course for all of the other apartheid victims. Not all of those can be uncovered or will ever be uncovered, but at least for those families that have never up to date have answers of their missing loved ones or the loved ones that were killed, in some little corner of their hearts, they will know that justice has been served for at least one family. Anything else in closing, Jessie, for this morning?
No, I think that's everything, Julie. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to see you guys covering this case, and I'm sure there'll be more updates in the next few days as the case continues.
Absolutely, we have committed to that. Salam Media has made a firm commitment that we will be covering this reopening of the inquest, and possibly talk with you again sometime during the course of the next 2 weeks. Go well, stay strong, strength to the legal team, and obviously to the family as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
And you. Jessie Waldman, she is, and I have to repeat this because I think it's a unique profession she's in. She's a PhD student at UCT, focusing on inquests. She previously worked as a solicitor in England and Wales, specializing in human rights, including inquests into deaths in custody, and that's the reason why she has featured on the show this morning, and she is at the reopening of the inquest into the late Imam Haron's death. The time, 8:34, News and Views right here on Salam Media.